my entire business model now is that I am with you through the process. Like, I want to create like a care plan with you. I don't want to sit down and make it for you, because if I do it, it's not going to end up being successful. You're going to be like, okay, yeah, that seems super overwhelming. Anyway, if you are invested in your care and you are really putting in the work and doing that as well, and we're coming up with a plan together that feels obtainable to you, I feel like you're going to be eons more successful.
How do you define holistic wellness?
My thought of like holistic wellness as a whole is just kind of getting back to restoring our body to a place where this is how we were designed to be living, and let's optimize this so that we can move forward and have that longevity.
I'm just going to ask everyone, going to go around and see what everyone had for breakfast this morning.
I had a piece of banana nut bread. I made banana nut bread for Easter.
Ooh.
Everyone in my family like makes fun of me. They say it's a dessert, but I feel like it's definitely breakfast.
Breakfast in my mind. I mean, I'll eat banana nut bread for breakfast,
Yeah.
for lunch.
Yeah.
Mess around and make it for dinner.
Yeah.
Might
It was
as
really
well.
clean, so I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not too bad. And some sausage.
Perfect. Oh, you gotta get some
trying
protein.
to get my protein in.
Gotta get some protein. Let's see, I had, this morning was a rush because my dog would not come inside. She actually had a mouse pinned at the top of a tree.
No.
The very top of a tree. I mean, well, this tree is maybe like 20. It's not a super tall tree, but I could see it at the very top, and she was just going crazy. And we have this air conditioner unit, and she jumps up on top of it.
It's just like, I got my own personal
And
stuff.
I thought that she was going to jump over the fence into our neighbor's yard. Luckily, that didn't happen, but so I was running behind. But anyways, I just had some yogurt and a banana. So Greek yogurt and a banana, and kind of got me off to a good start.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I did a chocolate chip cookie and a coffee from Starbucks.
Wow.
So-
What do you call this diet?
Huh?
What do you call this diet?
You got to get the carbs in, dude. The carb diet.
On the fly.
Yeah, on the fly. Yeah.
I'm not feeling so bad about my banana nut bread.
Do you feel better?
Yeah, I feel better.
Yeah. Our goal here usually is to bring people in, and just make you feel amazing.
Oh, good. I'll be back next week.
Perfect. Well, we can't wait to have you again. Well, since you're coming on again next week, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are, what you do. We met for the first time at your Christmas event, which,
Yeah.
let me just tell you, that was probably, if not the best event, if not, I'm trying to think if there's anything even close. Probably not. Because like every person that walked by, I had like a legitimate conversation with.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear
That is so rare. I don't know if you know that or not about
Yeah.
events. That's why I generally do not like events.
Well,
but-
I mean, that's what I was telling you earlier. Like, I just want, like, the genuineness. So I'm glad to hear that people still felt like that even when they came for an event.
Yeah,
Not
it was
just an
great. Like
office.
I got good conversations with everyone. I got,
Good.
a couple of leads,
Yeah.
people that showed interest. And that's just very rare for us. When we go to events and they see, fitness or personal training, they're like, yeah,
Go another way.
they're just like, you wait for the eye contact and they're like,
Yeah.
so.
Then you can follow them around.
Yeah, but you're like, everyone came by and they were so nice. It was very
Good.
casual.
Good.
There was good food. There was
Yeah.
good everything.
I love
it
a
was
good
great.
party.
Yeah. So tell us what you do at your clinic. Do you call it a clinic, an office? or-
I call it an office.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, my name is Elyse Cho. Formerly, I recently got married. So now my new last name is Martin.
Okay.
I will still answer to both for a little bit. I own the Hive. It used to be called the Hive Women's Wellness. Now it's called the Hive, a place for wellness, because we see women and men now.
Okay. Didn't know that.
So we do full spectrum holistic wellness for everybody. And so our focuses or our primaries are like hormone management, thyroid management, cortisol dysregulation. We do a lot of supplement guidance. So I have a lot of people that come in and they're like, I saw these things on Instagram and they look great. Should I be taking them? And what we do is we just kind of go through. We look at all of the testing just to like really evaluate your body, where you're at right now, and then figure out like what you need. We do a lot of gut health. We do some parasite work.
Interesting.
We do all kinds of stuff, but our goal is to provide like full spectrum holistic wellness throughout the lifetime.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have lots of questions about how you got into this.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind me asking, how do you define holistic wellness?
So it is really kind of a very tricky thing. And I
Mhm.
feel like right now it's pretty like, it's kind of like a hot topic.
Right.
And so it can be, the spectrum can be really large. For me, my thought of like holistic wellness is really kind of getting back to the root of the way that we were designed to live. And so part of the way that I practice is I do a lot of root cause approach. And so I try to figure out like, well, why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? What is causing what you're experiencing. And so really going back to the root of it all. But then in the bigger scheme of it, going back to the way that we were designed, like we're not designed to be having antibiotics, 5-6 times a year. If we're having to take antibiotics that often, there's something else bigger going on. So my thought of like holistic wellness as a whole is just kind of getting back to the way that, kind of restoring our body to a place where, this is how we were designed to be living, and let's optimize this so that we can move forward and have that longevity.
Love it. So optimization of how our body is supposed to work.
Right.
And a lot of times when I talk to people in the, kind of more holistic space, I like to ask first, what is your definition of a holistic approach?
Yeah.
And then usually there's some type of story or something that happened in your past that got you motivated to go this direction.
This route.
So, yeah. Can we hear about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've definitely always kind of been like, I guess an oddball. I mean, I grew up in the 90s. And so, my parents were, kid cuisining it and, like doing the best that they could.
The blue box for the penguin?
Yeah. That you like poke the holes in the plastic. And it's popping in the microwave.
Yeah. Eat the brownie, throw away the rest.
Yeah, the apples, the cinnamon apples. That'd probably be so gross if we had it now. I think those are still around. But, but apart from that, like, I had Bath and Body Works and all of these things. And so like grew up doing all of the things that you did in the 90s. And then as I got into, even in high school, I really feel like I kind of started to be like an oddball. I was like, well, I mean, yeah, this like the perfume smells really good, but like maybe that seems a little bit strong. And so like people would start, my mom now makes fun of me. She's like, oh, let me guess, it gives you a headache.
You don't understand, Mom.
Yeah, literally. Like I remember walking into like big box stores and being like, we got to get out of here. Like my head is hurting. It's crazy strong
Is
here.
Is that why you mentioned Bath and Body Works?
No, I
guess I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what Bath and Body Works is. I remember there was one in the mall where I grew up.
Smelly.
Right, super like fragrant
Yeah.
and I mean, even like, kiddos now still are like all about it. I have an 8 and a 9-year-old and they're both like, oh, we love it. And I'm like, sorry.
You can't have that.
Yeah, so sorry.
Not in this household.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyways, I mean, doing all of that stuff, but then like my mom's parents had a huge garden. And so I remember being like, hey man, this is so cool. Like we're not using a lot of pesticides to like grow these things. And my grandfather was out there just like doing his thing. I mean, this garden was massive. And so I really developed a love for cooking at a pretty young age. And so I would start like cooking with all these like fresh veggies, meats, all the things that, we were bringing home from, him gardening or hunting or whatever. And then it just kind of like continued. And so my mom deemed me the nickname, the glitzy hippie, because I always I still wanted to wear makeup and like look cute, but I was like, yeah, I mean, we don't have to do all the things.
Yeah.
And then just as I like advanced in my career, I really thought that I wanted to be an OB-GYN. I went to this medical conference for high school students and I got stuck with a midwife because the OB-GYN was busy. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I was at in Georgia, and so I was by myself with a bunch of other high school students, and she's like, just come with me, I'll show you. And we did a birth, and it was completely natural, but like still in the hospital, and it was so cool. And I was
How
like,
old were you at this
man, I was 15. And I was like, this is amazing. And I knew that I wanted to do like labor and delivery. That was my ultimate goal. But we just like stayed in there with the patient the entire time. It was completely unmedicated. It was so beautiful. And I was like, man, that was so awesome. So I came home and like really looked into what midwifery was and what that kind of entailed. And then I realized that like, being a midwife wasn't only just labor and delivery. We could offer like full spectrum care, throughout the lifespan of women. And I was like, I think I want to do that. So I started kind of doing some research, and I also knew that I always wanted to go to Baylor, and Baylor happened to have one of the only doctoral programs for nurse midwifery in women's healthcare in the state of Texas.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be here. So it just kind of grew and grew. And, when I first started my career, I worked in a big hospital. It was great. I did labor and delivery, did all the things. But I also did like clinic work too.
As with the label of a midwife?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like midwife, women's health nurse practitioner. And so I, was delivering babies in the hospital, and then I ended up I was also doing some hormone management when I got into private practice a little bit later on, and I was like, man, this is super cool. I'm really interested in like hormone management. And then just like as the years went on, I realized that I was forming these really strong bonds with women when they were coming in for their prenatal care. For throughout their pregnancy, they come in really frequently, and I would have these really strong bonds with them. And then I'm there like on one of the biggest days of their life when they're birthing their child, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, I'll see you when you have your next baby. And I was like, there is something wrong with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would come back and they'd have, man, I feel really fatigued, like I just don't feel good, my hair is falling out, all these things. And I was like, well, I wish I would have seen you sooner, but people didn't really. That's just kind of not the model of like traditional care. They're like, well, I'll come back whenever I get pregnant again, or when I have like a really big issue that I have to deal with. And so it just sort of like, evolved, and I was like, there's really a need for people that, want to help women and are really passionate about it. I ended up leaving private care. I had like some life changes. I needed to get a different job, and I was like, okay, well, let's figure it out. I was pregnant with my son, and I was like, I don't want to work somewhere and be gone all the time. Whenever he's born, I already had one kiddo, and I was like, I just want to be with my babies. And so that's kind of how the Hive was born.
And how long ago was that?
My current practice has been open for 3 years.
Okay.
We just moved into our new office that you were at. We just had our 1-year birthday at our new space. But yeah, our office has been open for 3 years. I've been doing this for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my current practice has been open for 3.
Wow, still brand new. And made quite we have I know one for sure, at least one client here that comes to see you that we've talked. I have lots of questions.
Yes.
But my first question, and excuse my ignorance, I guess. Can you define a midwife for me? Because in my mind, and maybe this is just a guy thing, I don't know, but my definition, my thought when someone says it's just someone that delivers babies. Like,
with the long gray braids in the middle of the woods. Yeah.
Exactly. Like in a bathtub, solo bathtub, like, is that accurate? Like, what is the actual definition?
Yeah. Well, the word midwife actually means with woman.
Oh.
And so, like, yes, that both definitions can be correct. We can be the long gray braids in the middle of the woods. Mm-hmm. That's like the mother of midwifery. Mm-hmm. I would definitely go back there. It was really like, somebody who helped women birth their children. Mm-hmm. But in the state of Texas, midwives are, a type of advanced nurse practitioner. Oh. And so we have the ability to provide primary care for women throughout the lifetime. And so that's the major focus of my practice. I don't do births. Okay. So I just do primary care for women, women's wellness.
So is there, if a woman gives birth in a hospital today, there's an OBGYN there and a midwife, or how does that work?
Yeah, not necessarily. It just kind of depends. So not all hospitals have midwifery as an option for a care provider in the hospital. It just kind of depends on where you land. The most traditional type of care would be to use an OB-GYN. Or, there are hospitals that have midwives available if you chose to use them.
And what would the difference be?
Yeah, it's just a patient preference, really. Oh. Or obviously midwives can, what you probably think of, can do birth like outside of the hospital in a birth center.
We had a client here a long time ago that was like as far as I could tell, like a private midwife, and that's what she did. Yeah. Women would hire her to do home births.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought that was just so interesting, and it's actually something that my wife and I. What's that?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I had both of my babies at home.
Really? And my wife and I have thrown around that. We're still like, we've talked about adopting even.
Yeah.
We've talked about like when that time comes, like
Mm-hmm.
if she's gonna go into a traditional hospital setting or do
Yeah.
it at home. Like we've had
Yeah.
minor conversations.
Well, she
about
can
those
call
things.
me. I'll
Yeah.
walk her through all the options.
Yeah, because this might come as a surprise to you. Complete unknown to me.
I mean, I think it's kind of an unknown until like it has to be a necessary known, right? You don't really walk
Sure.
around like, I wonder where women are having their babies.
Yeah. I had another question too, specifically on in your story. You were 15 when you saw a midwife give a delivery.
Yeah, do a delivery.
What was your knowledge and experience of traditional delivery at that time? Like, did you have any background on knowing what it would usually look like compared to what you were experiencing in that moment?
I was just talking with somebody about this the other day. I don't know if you remember, there used to be, well, you probably weren't watching it, but there used to be this show on TLC called A Baby Story, and it would
Never
like
heard of
follow, it would like follow these women around, and I was like obsessed with that show, and I was probably like late junior high, early high school. It would follow these women around at the end part of their pregnancy, and then it would go to the hospital with them. They would like, film-ish for TV, their birth, and then they would like pop back in their home when they were postpartum. And I
Okay.
used to just like, I don't know, I was always like so enthralled with birth and thought it was like super cool. I still think it's so cool. I'm still super passionate about it. Obviously, I had my kiddos at home. Like, I think the process of physiologic birth is really incredible. I mean, obviously there is a time and a place for, a medicalized delivery for sure. But I still think it's like so incredible. Yeah.
So you had been like researching and doing your...
Yeah, I was kind of aware,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
in birth in general, this is like sweeping statement, which I don't super love, but birth in general from a traditional care provider is very hands off. Like nurses do all the work. You show up, you do your stuff. You maybe see your provider like once or twice. They come in, see how far along you are, and then they come in when the baby's like eyebrows out, and they're like, "Oh, push, okay, great, congratulations, here's your baby," and they leave. Not always. That's a sweeping statement, right?
I
But
understand.
yeah. But like midwifery care, the purpose or the thought behind traditional midwifery care is that we're with the woman throughout the process of the labor. We don't go in and out. You're not like leaving. And so like, my incredible midwife that delivered my son, she literally was with me like from right at the very start of labor, and she stayed till he was a couple of hours old. I don't think she ever took her hand off my shoulder.
Wow.
Just super involved, which is really such a blessing when you're going through the process.
Mhm. And even though you don't necessarily do that now,
Yeah, I don't do that part anymore.
That style of care is what you do.
Yeah, that's really what drove me into this. I mean, that's like my entire business model now is that I am with you through the process. Like one of my, I want to create like a care plan with you. I don't want to sit down and make it for you, because if I do it, it's not going to end up being successful. You're going to be like, okay, yeah, that seems super overwhelming. Anyway. But if you are invested in your care and you are really putting in the work and doing that as well, and we're coming up with a plan together that feels obtainable to you, I feel like you're going to be eons more successful.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that for sure. Can you walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah, the process of it all. So we're fee-for-service practice, which means we're like a cash pay practice. And so you are established into the practice. So in order to get in, you pay a fee, you get into the practice. That covers like the cost of your first appointment. All of our appointments are an hour long. And so during that first hour of care, that's when we really use that time to like get to know you, figure out, do you have anything that's bugging you? Do you have anything that you want to work on? Whether that's like chronic fatigue, weight gain, nutrition, gut health, brain fog. You just want to like create longevity. A lot of people are like, I just don't want to age poorly.
That's definitely a thing right now, for sure.
Right. So whatever it is. So we walk through all of that. And then in the pattern of functional medicine, one of the things that kind of sets functional medicine apart, which is the type of medicine that I practice, is that we look at your healthcare on like a time continuum. And so if you are like, I am chronically fatigued and I've been this way since I had, my second child, then we need to go back to that pregnancy and really we need to dive deep right there and figure out like, hey, what happened during that pregnancy? Well, I was hospitalized two times. I had a really horrible labor and delivery, like, whatever is going on. So we have to do a lot of deep diving to figure out the meat and potatoes of why you're feeling the way that you do. So that's kind of what your first appointment entails. And then we do really in-depth lab work and additional testing if you decide. So it just kind of depends on what route you choose to go. If we're trying to look at like hormone management, like, we have a lot of men in our practice now that have low T. And so we're trying to figure out like, hey, where is it stemming from? It's not just something we want to run down the street and like get a shot for.
You mean I can't just go to the T clinic
You
down
sure
the road?
can. You absolutely can. But we need to figure out like why it looks like that. And so, just going through figuring out what labs we need to order and then what additional testing we need to do. And then you come back for your follow-up appointment. That appointment's also an hour long. We go over everything very in depth with you, probably more information than you ever wanted to know about yourself. And then from there, we make a plan moving forward. And so generally that looks like you starting on supplementation, changing diet, changing behaviors or habits. And then we see you, depending on what's going on. We repeat labs like every 6 weeks. We repeat labs every 12 weeks. We see you back usually in about 3 months, and then we just kind of get on a plan moving forward.
So it's and everyone's a little bit different.
Everybody's
right?
very different, yeah. People sometimes can kind of get a little bit frustrated if we can't give them like, this is what it looks like. And I'm like, I mean, I can do that if you want, but I really like try to focus on a concierge type of medicine. And so that's also one of the things that I say, like, once you're in the practice, like once you are an established patient after that first appointment, you have access to all 4 providers. You have access to the front. We are getting back to you in like 24 to 48 hours with an answer. It's not like, oh, so-and-so is busy. They'll get back with you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. I have a couple of questions, but before that, you said 4 providers?
Yeah, there's 4 of us now.
Can you talk about how that works and how y'all work amongst each other?
Yeah, so it's me, and then I have 3 girls that are on my team, and they all are really incredible. So my other 3 are family nurse practitioners. So I'm a certified nurse midwife, women's health nurse practitioner, and then my other 3 are family nurse practitioners. And so it just kind of depends. I don't see men. So in the state of Texas, I'm obviously a women's health nurse practitioner. I don't see men. So if you are trying to come into the practice and you are male, then you are with one of them. And then, if you're a female, then you're with me or one of them. And it just kind of depends on, I obviously have people that are like, no, it's fine, I'll wait for Elyse. Or people that are like, I want the first available appointment. So wherever you kind of land, and then that's where you generally live under our umbrella. And so like if you are quote unquote my patient, then you remain my patient. Now you might talk to another provider. Like we do a lot of what I call interim lab checks. And so if we're really trying to like hone in, like let's say your thyroid's not super optimal and we're trying to really like put back some minerality that you need or some vitamins that are like you're really low on, like your nutrition is poor at a cellular level. We're trying to put those things back. We will check you like in 4 or 6 weeks and we're like, hey, it looks great. Like you need to continue, but let's change the dose to look like this. And so another provider might call you to kind of go over those labs, but you would generally come back and still be seen by the same person.
It's basically, it's a team effort, but you, for the most part, your communication is through the same person. So you kind of build a relationship.
Yes, which is what we really want. We really want to establish like, not that I'm trying to like be your bestie, but we want to establish like that you trust and care.
Yeah. Have you felt that you can be more successful with a patient because of that relationship?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really feel like, I want people to feel seen and heard. That's it. Like, that's the basis of all of it. And so I feel like if somebody feels seen and heard, they are going to trust that I have their best interest at heart. They're not going to be like, oh, she was in here for 5 minutes. She doesn't even know anything. Right. But, in an hour-long conversation, I have the opportunity to, like, figure out, what your dog's name is and where you're going on vacation. And then when you come back and I'm remembering those details, you feel like, hey, she truly cares. And it's because we do truly care. So I do feel like we have more success just because the patients know that we're on their side.
Yeah, a huge complaint you hear in the medical field is that they don't actually know anything about me other than this one thing that I'm telling them
Right.
in this couple of minutes. I'm trying to, I have this stomach issue and I'm trying to squeeze all those details into this one little appointment.
Yeah.
You know, and then they don't actually feel like, and I was one of these people as well. So, you know, you never feel like you can actually get out the whole backstory
Right.
of why you feel a certain way.
Right. Or it's like, well, yeah, like Jim Bob, 2 patients before you had that same stomach issue. So here's the same treatment option. And there's no like, there's no personalizing their care plan. It's just a lot of like, you know, drive through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you see somebody for an hour every 6 weeks versus 5 minutes twice a year,
right,
it's a big difference. And, you know, in personal training, that's like a huge part. We see people, we do 45 minutes, but, you know, we see people for 45 minutes, 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah.
You know, so you really build that relationship. But what I've learned is that people's relationships build fairly quickly if you actually spend time with them and have the ability to have actual conversations.
If you care about them.
Yeah, if you care about it. And you can get so much more information. And then we're willing to actually tell you to maybe there's something in their condition that's kind of private. You know,
like
especially 99%
of the time, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that's the other thing. Like, a lot of providers aren't willing to like really go down that uncomfortable path. I mean, a part of our new patient appointment is asking people, do you have any like past traumas? Like whatever that might look like for you. And I mean, I make a joke. It's not a joke, but I always say like, oh, people cry in the pink chair because one of our chairs in the exam room is pink, and people are like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm upset. I'm like, this is part of the appointment. Like, you got to get it all out. Like, if you didn't cry in the pink chair, we need to dig a little bit deeper. Not really. That's not my goal to make people cry.
We're gonna have to pull the purple shell out of the bag.
That's not my goal to make people cry. But if I'm not really uncovering like what is truly bothering you, then we need to figure out like, number one, do we need to have another appointment so that you can establish that trust and like let me in? Or, you know, like where's it coming from?
Why do you think other providers don't get to that level?
Well, I don't know. I do think a lot of it has to do with, you know, cost and reimbursement. Like a traditional insurance-led practice model, insurance bills by a 5, 10, or 15-minute visit. There is a 35-minute visit option, but the amount of documentation that has to be done for a 35-minute visit probably is taking the provider maybe an hour. And it's like, well, the math ain't mathin'. And so it really makes it like so hard for somebody who is accepting insurance. It's like you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't.
So whenever you go to put in for your insurance reimbursement, as a healthcare professional, when you go to put in for the insurance reimbursement, it's going to ask you if you spent 5, 10, or 15 minutes.
You have to decide like your billing code, and then you put it in. It's based on a time amount. Yeah.
I mean, what can you really learn about someone in 5 minutes?
Like I said, I mean, I used to work at one of the big hospital systems, and I mean, I was seeing like 30, 35 people in a day.
Wow. Jeez. And how many do you see in a day now?
Now? 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Yeah.
And that's every day for you? Like, I have more questions, but just while we're on it, like, your day is all day with patients, or are you focused, like, on the business part?
Well, I run the business, too.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm asking.
I wear a lot of different hats.
I understand.
Yeah. So it is a huge, like, one of my, you know, hills that I will die on is I want my employees to have, like, quality work-life balance.
Sure.
I don't want them to be like, oh, my gosh, all I ever do is work. And so I want to be with my kiddos, too, because my babies are young. And so right now I work in the office, depending on the week, between 3 and 4 days a week.
Okay.
Mondays are my me day. I don't see clients on Mondays.
Okay.
The office is only open from 8:30 to 12:30 on Monday, and so there's not any providers in-house on Monday. We just do, like, labs. We do phone calls, you know, things like that. So that's kind of like a catch-up day for all of the office staff. And so, yeah, that's...
So Tuesday through Friday, you're seeing 5 to 7 30 minutes to 60
It
minutes?
depends on the day, yeah.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
like, Thursday is my long day. That's the day that I see 7 patients in that day. And then, like, some Tuesdays, I just see, like, 2 people, and those are, like, my, office hours like when I'm playing CEO.
Yeah, I understand.
And then Fridays, I usually see 5 patients on Fridays because I want to pick my daughter up from school and take her to dance.
Cool.
Yeah, so it just kind of depends.
I want to wrap back to that, but so we don't get too far off topic. I was curious. I know you do everything individual, but do you have like a base labs that you recommend everyone do no matter what, and then you build off of that?
Yeah,
or how does that work?
We definitely do. But like our base labs, I was looking at like 45 different things. So it's extremely in depth.
Are there a few like specifics we can like kind of
Yeah,
nerd out on?
So I think it's really important, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm always anemic, or like my B12 is always low. And so those are some things that like, we obviously are including in our regular lab panel, but the way that we're looking at and deciphering those labs, those are telling us like what's going on a deeper level. So I'll use like our vitamin B12, for example, or both of them. Both of those things are synthesized in our gut. And
Both of
iron and our B12.
Okay, got it.
So those are both synthesized in our gut. So if you're like, well, I have always had anemia, or like every time I go to, do labs, I'm anemic, or like every time I try to donate blood, I can't because I have anemia. Or like my B12's always low. I don't know. I can never get it up. Like then that for me, I'm like, oh, red flag number 1, we need to figure out what's happening in your gut. Like, why are you not taking in and absorbing what you should be? Because both those things are synthesized in the gut from animal byproducts. So animal fats, animal meat, protein, so unless you're eating like a vegan diet, neither one of those things should be low.
Okay. And so you're going to get that test on everyone, no matter what.
Yeah.
Kind of make sure that that's in a good
yeah,
spot.
right. So those are some things that like more specifics, but what we're looking at is like, we're looking at like hormones, hormone precursors. We look at vitamins, minerals. We do a full thyroid panel, which is looking at like 6 different thyroid values. We're looking at like inflammatory markers. We're looking at kidney function, liver function. We're just kind of looking at like the full gamut of like what is making you be you right now, and then how do we need to fix it moving forward.
And then do you find that a lot of people that have had, let's call it ongoing issues in the past, you can look at these labs and pinpoint what their issues have been? Is there a lot of correlation there, or is it kind of like a game where you're trying to figure it out?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Yeah. It's hard to say like for sure, but I think it like, goes back to, I'll go back to the anemia example. I've always had anemia, and then I'm like, well, your B12 is 200. Or they're like, I just got a B12 injection, I don't know why it didn't stay.
And it's still low?
Or it's still super low.
Can we talk about what's going on that person?
Yeah, so like their gut's generally like pretty
So it's a gut problem.
dysfunctional.
It's like a digestion. They're not absorbing
absorbing, yeah. So they probably either have like leaky gut or some type of bacterial like overgrowth, like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And that same person probably has a lot of anxiety because we have like this gut-brain axis going on. So we have a microbiome in our gut, all the little, I call them the good bugs and the bad bugs that live in there that like make up our gut, in like our GI, intestinal health. And if those things are not in line or where they need to be, we don't have normal production of serotonin, which is like one of our feel-good hormones. We don't have normal production of dopamine, which in turn creates like this refractory event where we don't produce enough melatonin, and then we can't go to sleep at night, and we don't sleep throughout the night, and then we're not dreaming, and then our hormones become dysfunctional. And so it's like this very big domino effect.
Yeah, it's this cascading issue.
Yeah.
So where do we start with this person? Am I getting too detailed?
No.
Okay, cool.
I think, for this person, what I do is I say like, hey, what is bothering you the most? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, every single time that I eat, I feel like I look 3 months pregnant. And I'm like,
I've heard that before.
Yeah, abdominal bloating is absolutely not normal, like post-meal. And so then I'm like, okay, like, is that bothering you more than the not sleeping? Or is the not sleeping bothering you more than the bloating? And so then we try to figure out, like, what feels like the bigger issue. And then from there, whenever they're like, you know what, this, like, a lot of times it will be the bloating because people are super uncomfortable. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, let's start there. So then we start doing GI work, which is the way that I do GI work is we use a bunch of, several different testing options. And what I do is I just kind of present them. I'm like, hey, these are the testing options. And it kind of depends on what you want to invest for your own health. There are like, a more affordable option. There's like a medium option and then an expensive option. And, it is very unfortunate that like we have to invest so much for our health, but I feel like it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have quality longevity, what's the purpose of having longevity?
Yeah. And these tests, you're looking for what?
Yeah. So like gut testing, what we're looking at is, one of the tests that I do is like a stool sample DNA test. So, it's looking at like the good bug profile, bad bug profile, bacterial overgrowth, leaky gut, viral reactivation inside of the gut. Do you have a lot of inflammatory markers in the gut? Is there parasite involvement? Do you have like gluten intolerance? And then like kind of piggybacking on that, we do some food sensitivity testing. So if we're going to change dietary habits, I'm not a huge proponent of being like, hey, everybody should be gluten and dairy and such and such and such and such free. I'm like, let's look at our actual system and see. Yes, yeah. Like Insta's great, but whatever that influencer's doing, it doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly what you need to do. So I'm looking and trying to figure out like, what do you actually need to do?
And you're going to solve these through supplementation or dietary changes?
Yeah, both. Yeah. Okay. So supplementation, dietary changes, a lot of the times it's habit changes too. So, people get like they get stuck, or people are like, I've had chronic constipation my whole life. I just never go to the bathroom. And I'm like, have you ever put yourself on a stooling schedule? And people look at me like I have,
what's
a
that?
horn growing out of my head. So like you literally, just like if you were potty training like a dog, like every morning, 30 minutes after you get up, you need to be having a bowel movement. Oh. And if you haven't had a bowel movement 30 minutes after waking, like we need to figure out what's going on. And some people are like, well, I have a bowel movement like 90 minutes after I wake up. Is that good? And I'm like, I mean, it's fine, but let's try to move it up a little bit. So for 2 weeks, go to the bathroom at 60 minutes after you wake up. Sit down, get yourself a Squatty Potty, wait a little bit. If nothing happens, get up and move on about your day.
Those things are pretty nice. Squatty Potties?
Yeah, Squatty Potty.
Yeah, I remember Richard, shout out Richard Goodson. I remember when he first showed me a Squatty Potty, like, I think we were in high school.
Yeah, they're nice, dude. Yeah. I feel like a Squatty Potty bidet setup would be kind of crazy. I'm just saying, I feel like that'd be kind of wild. Like, dude, this is kind of nice.
Shark Tank suit?
Yeah, right. It's like all hooked up in one.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I like it.
Why is he not wearing pants? Dun, dun.
I feel like we have the rights to this. If he hits it big on Shark Tank, he's going to call us.
This is happening.
Me and Mr. Wonderful are going to hit it off on that one, I think.
No doubt about it. We're getting the testing done.
Yeah.
And then through the testing, or maybe some habit changes, some lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
If those don't work, we introduce supplements and dietary changes.
Right. I mean, a lot of the times we are introducing supplementation. That's a huge part of my practice for sure. But like, for example, I'll use probiotics since we're talking about the gut. Like everybody's on a probiotic. And I'm like, well, have you ever looked at like your gut microbiome? Well, most people, no. I don't know. This probiotic's supposed to be good. Has great advertisement. Like it's a good product. And I'm not saying that it is bad by any means, but a lot of the times we're giving ourselves stuff that we don't need. And it's like predisposing us to developing other things. And so like if we take too many of one type of, bacteria, which is what a probiotic is, then it's going to off kilter all the other bacterial strains that we have. And then all of a sudden it's hard for us to lose weight. And we're like, why can't I lose weight? Well, come to find out, we don't have any Akkermansia, which is one of the bugs that we need to regulate metabolic function. And then that predisposes us to developing like pancreatic insufficiency, having insulin issues. And then it's just like, just perpetuating. It all sounds very like dramatic and it's horrible and scary. It's not all horrible and scary. So if you're taking a probiotic, I don't think like you're going to develop diabetes. That's not what I'm saying. But, I think it's so important to know exactly what your body needs and not just like be blindly supplementing. That is a huge soapbox for me.
Yeah. I'm just a personal trainer, right? But people ask about supplements and I do not go down that road at all.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I remember talking to people about, if you want to get this or that or whatever. But now, like in my experience, We do not recommend any type of supplements. Never tell anyone to take anything. We direct them straight to some type of blood panel or test, and then let's get your supplements based upon your needs.
Right, for sure.
So that is 100% the way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's really important because there's so many times, like, we're leaving cold and flu season. A lot of people are taking zinc, and if your zinc and your copper are not like in a 1-to-1 ratio, you're not going to absorb anything. So you could be taking all kinds of vitamins, and supplements are expensive.
Yeah.
And here you are, you're just dropping that zinc on in, and everything's off kilter, and you're maybe going to absorb like a third of what you're taking in. And I'm like, oh, well, if you just had a little bit of copper, you'd absorb all of this so much better. But this is not like, we're not talking about this like super regularly.
Right.
Like, it's just not like unless you're really deep diving in all the things.
Yeah, but that's what you're doing for them. You're
Right.
Getting the comprehensive look at everything. I was curious about the test. You said that there's like, you were talking specifically about digestive gut health tests. Some are more expensive, some are middle of the road, some are kind of budget friendly. Is there a big difference there between those?
So I do think that there is a difference. I mean, they all have huge benefits. And when I say budget friendly, I mean, like, we're talking the cheapest, like, food sensitivity testing is like $325. So it's not, I mean, it's not like super budget friendly, but it's a little bit less expensive. And then we go all the way up to, we have tests that are $1,000.
That's pretty signiugment difference. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Sure.
So, I mean, and like, we might have, I mean, I have people that I'm like, you need to do the $1,000 workup, right? We need to do it. But they can't because they're like, well, I can't do that right now. And I'm like, okay, not a problem. Like, let's start with this. Like, this is going to give us 70% of the picture. And I think 70% is a whole lot better than 0%.
That's right.
So that's what we're going to start with. And then if in the future we decide that we need to do this next one, let's do the next one. And so, yeah, I think that, there are a lot of options. And part of, like, I don't, all the testing that we offer, everybody has their suggested retail value and all that. I'm not even marking it up to what their suggested retail is because, we do it a little bit in the middle because it takes us a long time to interpret and break down the test. Like, our providers are working, long before your appointment comes up to go over everything and be like, okay, this is what I think is happening. But, I mean, there are definitely people that are marking it up far beyond suggested retail value.
And going back to how we first started when I asked you your definition of like holistic care and stuff, this is a world that I often tell people, please be careful.
Yeah.
Vet the providers, vet the people that you're talking to. Yeah. Do you have any advice on how to do that? Because it's this crazy world when you really get in there. So I'm just, how do you recommend vetting someone or a doctor or a provider, whatever you want to call them, on how to get started, down this road?
Yeah, well, I think that I always feel like there's a place for us to, use our mind. And so if it feels really astronomical or it feels just a little too woo-woo, maybe we don't go down that route. But you know what? I'm like, on the other hand, sometimes stuff is like very woo-woo.
Sometimes I call it the hippie stuff.
Right,
like,
yeah. Sometimes it's really woo-woo. And I'm like, I mean, they're not wrong.
Yeah, right,
there is a lot to be said about, like alternative treatment options or alternative modalities for sure. But when you're investing $5,000-$7,000 to become a patient and the provider is all the way in nowhere, Washington, like there's probably a better option a little bit closer to home. And it doesn't necessarily have to look like that. And so but that might be the person that's right for you. And so I'm always like, you know what? Just like look around, figure out who the best option is, land a little bit like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on how it's gotten to that? Because I've seen, like you threw the number 5,000 to 7,000 out there. I've seen numbers even go up beyond that on just to like get your appointment with XYZ holistic, amazing, life changer
for sure
person. Like how did we get there?
Yeah, because people aren't getting heard and they're not feeling seen. And so they're like, you know what? Like if it's going to cost me $5,000, but I'm going to feel better, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because the amount of people that come into the office and they are so broken. They've felt horrible for years and years and years. Nobody is on their team. Nobody's listening to them. Nobody's helping them. I mean, it's sad. It's so sad. Like, I had a patient the other day. She's got so many issues. She went and saw another provider, like a traditional care provider, and she took her plan from us, and she came back. She was like, I am feeling the best that I have felt in 6 months, like doing these things. Took the care plan to the other person, and that other person told her, this is ridiculous. I don't know why you would do this. And she was like, well,
but it worked.
I'm feeling better. And that other provider was like, well, they're crazy. And she was like, okay, I gotta go.
Yeah. Peace.
Right. But I mean, just like that, like she's feeling better.
Wow.
No, there's no harm, right? Nothing, like her labs look better. She's feeling better. She looks better. Like her skin looks better. Everything looks better. And that's not what she came to me for. She didn't come to me for her skin. She had like GI issues. But like she is doing way better.
If you don't mind me asking, what do you think was the game changer in that scenario?
For her? Well, we've done a lot of work for her, but she had a lot of like GI distress. I mean, to the point where she was like stooling blood over and over, like a lot of stuff going on. And like in that particular person, I was like, you need to go be seen by a GI specialist. Like we've got to, like somebody's got to look in there and figure out what's going on.
I'm glad to hear you say that because, you know, a lot of times like these like, we were talking about the woo-woo stuff, right? A lot of times I would be like, hey, I got it.
Yeah. Oh, no. You got to know what you don't know.
Right.
Yeah. If you don't know what you don't know, then we're bad. We're not in a good place. So yeah, I'm 100%. Like if we've got to refer you out somewhere, I'm going to try to get you to somebody that also cares.
Yeah. Yes. They need to care also for sure. But you sent her to a specialist.
Well, she came to me from a specialist somewhere else. So she was like seeking, another option. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it was a bunch of things all happening at once for her.
A combination of nutrition and supplementation.
Right, yeah. Supplementation, like habit changes. We did a lot of dietary changes. I mean, she left the office probably, I remember like in her appointment going over like dietary stuff. I was like, okay, these are the foods that we're going to avoid. And it was probably like 50 foods. And
wow, that's a lot.
I mean, she was like, ugh. Yeah. And I'm like, but, for me, we're not avoiding those 50 foods forever. Like, we are going to avoid these for like 4 weeks. We're going to see how you feel, and then we're going to start slowly reintroducing. Because I don't want to get you on some kind of like wacky diet, and then you can't get normal foods back into your day-to-day routine. Like, you have to be able to live. That's the other thing. If these really, like, the wild woo-woo, like, things, if it feels like everything is so restricted and you're not able to live your life, like, that's not it either.
Yeah, I always tell everyone, like, if anything that I tell you, like, because, when we're in a personal training setting, we're helping with some lifestyle stuff, habit changes, cardio, and things like that. Yeah. So I always tell everyone, like, hey, if anything that I ask you to do feel like it's adding stress to your life, please just let me know because we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. This is not
restorative.
Yeah, we do not want to add stress to you. Fitness should make you feel better.
Right.
Not worse. What was the time frame in getting her better? Like, so this is a serious example.
Yeah, right.
And so, like, what kind of time frame are you looking at?
I don't know. It's been less than a year.
Wow.
She's been my patient less than a year.
Dang.
I mean, like, granted, she still has things that she's dealing
with.
For sure.
Yeah, don't we all?
But yeah, like, anxiety's way more under control.
Amazing.
Symptoms are better. Like I said, her skin's better, which isn't that we were like not even doing anything about that. So I mean, yeah, she's doing.
Wow,
it's been less than a year.
Yeah, that's so good.
I have to look back. You're gonna. I'm gonna look back. I'll text you.
I'll make you think.
Okay.
I'd like to change gears a little bit back to when you first started. You know, you said you got a new building a year ago.
Yeah.
So tell us, the process of getting started, how you got your first couple of patients. Very curious. I'm always interested.
Yeah.
In those types of stories.
Gosh, I don't even remember how I got my first couple of patients. Honestly, I think it was just like word of mouth. So, like I said, I'm extremely passionate about what I do, if you can't tell. So I, decided, okay, yes, I'm going to do it. In my head, originally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to work like twice a week, 2 days a week, make enough to like take care of me and my kiddos. That was my goal. And so created a website, started pushing stuff out on social media. And I think I did that like probably in December, and my like first day open I think it was sometime the end of part of January. And I had 3 people on my schedule the first day, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, so
it
was great. And like one of them I didn't know. I mean, the other 2 like I knew,
like
but
family friends.
Not well, one of them was a family friend, and then one was like somebody that I knew, but like I just was an acquaintance, and then somebody that I didn't know, and I'm like, how'd you find me?
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, I just saw it like on social media, and I was like, okay, great. And then, I mean, from there, it's truly just all been word of mouth, which has been such a blessing. And it really makes me feel like I'm in the right spot. You know, I feel like I was called to do this, and I feel like, you know, I'm so passionate about it. And so it's all really been just like word of mouth from there, pretty much. And so it started like really snowballing. Probably like by this summer, I was like, okay, I guess I'll be working 3 days a week.
Yeah, cool.
So I started doing 3 days a week, and then I had a wait list probably like in August. I started having like it was a longer wait list. And it just sort of like continued to kind of stack on, which was so incredible to watch and like witness. But also very overwhelming.
Sure, I understand.
I grew up, my mom owned a pretty large business, and I used to always say, like, I don't really want to own a business. I just want to, like, go to work and do what I love. But in order to do the things that I love in the manner that I wanted to do them, I had to own my own business. So here we are.
Yeah, very cool. And y'all got the new building because you were forced into a larger space? Or?
Well, so I felt like I had, like, reached max capacity, and it was only me at my first location. I didn't have anybody else. And then actually the girl that used to be my nanny, I was like, I need help. And she had moved out of state. And I was like, do you want a virtual assistant job? And she was like, yeah, I do. And so she became like my virtual assistant and started doing stuff. We were joking about this. She's one of my really good friends. And we were joking about this. I was like, do you remember I called you? And I was like, I'll pay you $100 a month to check faxes. And she was like, yeah, I remember that. And then like in 6 weeks, you were like, I'll pay you $500 a month to do this and this and this.
And she started working on schedule.
Yeah, so she started scheduling people, and then I got like the office. I got its own phone because originally it was just like my phone number, and then I was like, what am I doing? I gave my personal phone number.
Yeah. We still deal with that here also.
Yes.
Like our first at this location, my a lot of people still contact me via my personal number because when I first started, it was
just your phone number,
me by myself, you know, and so then it grows and grows, and then that first one is just always.
Yeah, right. So, so then we had like an interim location because I had signed a lease on our current building. Our current building used to be a cleaner's, and when I looked at it, it was like a concrete box, and it had a hole in the middle, like I could see the sky. And I'm not really sure like why I felt drawn to that location, but there I was.
Sounds like a winner.
Yeah, woo, that was it. So I signed the lease, and the contractor was like, yeah, it'll take like 4 months, and I was like, oh. Okay, great. And so we had like an interim location that was
2 years later.
Pretty much. It was 11 months.
Yeah.
And all my brains fell out. No.
No, I get it. I get
you
it.
just built your new space. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we like had the interim location, and then Katie, my said virtual office assistant, she like, you know, moved into the new space with me, and she was working like in-house.
So she moved back here?
Yeah, they ended up moving back, and like all of the timing, you know, it was perfect. Then she moved into my new space, not this current space, but the interim space, and she was working as like an actual assistant, not just the virtual kind.
Cool.
And then we moved into our I call it our forever home. I mean,
wow. And now and so you've had these 3 more providers and a couple of front desk staff for going on a year or 2 now.
So Carly was my second provider. She joined me in October of 23. Okay. So she's been with me for a year and a half. And then I just hired my other 2 in December and in January.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're there, and then we have 2 amazing girls that run the front desk. Couldn't do it without them. I have my office manager, Kelly, and then on the back part of the office, we have that holistic spa back there. And so we have Zoe's back there. She's our holistic esthetician, and then I have Jamie, who is my marketing manager.
Dang. And what's the future plans? Like what's next?
Yeah. I'd love to open up another location. At some point. I don't know what that looks like.
And would you continue to take patients at that point, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't ever want to not take patients. I love what I do. So I feel like that like fills up my cup to continue running the business. Okay. It fuels me to continue going.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And do you think that that location would be like, as your patients come to you once every 6 to 12 weeks, you said, so that location would probably be a significant distance away, or how do you see that
Yeah,
working
in
out?
the Houston area, I have a lot of clients that are like more northwest,
Mm.
and I have a lot of people that are driving quite a long distance. So,
Mhm.
I think probably somewhere else,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not here, but drivable
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, because like for us, the convenience factor is so important. So we take there's a lot of strategy, like, and thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're going somewhere 2 or 3 times a
If you
week,
can't get there, you're not gonna go.
yeah, exactly. So like our thing is they don't have to be very far apart from each other.
Right.
Right? Because the convenience factor is so important because they're coming so frequently. But with
Right.
you, it's not as important, so you can kind of reach a whole new audience maybe
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Still has to be drivable though,
Right.
because I've got control issues.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, is there anything else? Well, I guess, I did have one more. I have lots of questions, but so we don't get too far. Last time I think I was at your office, it was specifically women.
So in December?
Uh-huh.
No.
I'm not sure, but maybe it's just last time I really deep dove into your social media and stuff. It was very much kind of women focused, but now you have.
Yeah, we see men,
Uh-huh.
and we've been seeing men since Carly came on board in October of 23.
Okay.
But it definitely, like, we do have men that seek us out for sure, but a lot of the time it's like their wives get in the door because they're looking for, like, the wives are like, I want an alternative for hormone management. Like, I don't necessarily want to do pellets. I want to look at another option. Or I just want to, like, have my hormones checked. I went here and they said, like, they don't check hormones. That's one thing we hear. Or, like, my hormones are fine. And they're definitely not fine because I'm super moody before I start my cycle. And so it's like the wife gets in the door, or the girlfriend or whoever gets in the door, and then they're like, oh, my husband's going to be here.
Yeah. Please see him.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So, I mean, we definitely, it is something that I think is really important. That we can, provide care, hopefully, eventually to the whole family. We're going to start trying to bring on peds at some point, like a functional style for peds, which I think, like, I'm super passionate about. Like, that's what, how I want to do my own children too. And so I'm, want to be able to provide care for the whole family.
Yeah, so bringing men into the equation just kind of happened organically, really, from the women bringing their husbands, boyfriends, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just kind of accepted us.
Yeah,
for the guys that we are.
I like I said, I mean, I don't see you guys. I'm not licensed in the state of Texas to see men, but
I had no idea that there was a license separate for men and women.
It just depends on, like, what avenue you go down. Yeah.
So interesting.
But I mean, we have had a lot of really good outcomes with our male clients, like people that are, they're like, I'm going to go get on some type of testosterone injection, or like they don't feel good, or, whatever. I mean, we've had a lot of really great change just by doing what we do.
Awesome.
Getting their testosterone up 200 points is huge.
Without anything.
Dang. Well, not without anything, but without any testosterone.
Without any direct testosterone injections.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That's huge.
Is there anything about what you do that we should discuss before we kind of wrap up?
I don't know. Like, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, anything that you want to say? Anything you think is important?
Yeah. I just feel like, if you are, like, looking for something and you feel like you haven't found the answer, I do think there's somebody out there that wants to help you. So, like, don't give up on yourself. You have to be your own best advocate. And so if you're not feeling well and you think you're not feeling well, or that, like, you feel different than you have in the past, then I think it is so important that you look into that and figure out why. It is not normal to, feel this way or that way as we age. It's not normal to be like, well, I'm 40. I guess this is normal for being 40. Or, like, I should feel this fatigued in the afternoon. I have small children, or, like, I work nights. I should feel like death for, I should not be able to recover. I work nights. Or I have, like, middle belly weight gain, and, like, that's normal for me. Those things are not normal. They're extremely common, and we've kind of become as a society, in my opinion, really kind of lazy and like accepting what's normal. But like they're not normal. So you should fight for yourself to feel better, feel your best self.
Yeah, one of my most hated things. There's a couple of statements that really bother me. One of them is like, must be nice. That's one of my.
You're like,
yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But where I was getting at is also whenever I'm 34,
Mhm.
so I consider myself very young and
Yeah.
I feel good and everything. And then I talk to men that are a little bit older than me, like, wait till you're 40.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going. We're just, hey, what are you guys doing this weekend? Like, and my wife's a real big run. She likes to run a lot. I'm like, oh, we're gonna, I'm going on a 5-mile run for an example. Like,
Yeah.
oh, wait till you're 40.
You're
Or
like,
they're like, how often do you work? I work out, I work out 4 days a week. Oh, wait till you're my age. Stuff like that. I'm just like, don't worry, I'm ready. Like you're you and I'm me.
Right.
Like you shouldn't be saying those
But
things. though.
if you are saying those things, like we need, why do you feel that way? You are only 40. Like that's my statement.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I feel like, we do a lot of work with like libido and things like that, which, people are like, well, it's normal for me to never want to have sex. Like I'm 50. And I'm like, I mean, no.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, let's fix that.
Mhm.
So, if you are feeling symptoms that feel big and overwhelming, like let's fix them.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's fight to fix them.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not impossible.
No,
It is possible to fix these things and to
for
feel
sure.
good.
Absolutely.
So important. Sean, do you have any questions?
I have 3. I
Okay.
have 3 questions. So
ready.
I'm going to start with a light one, and then we're going to go to 2 that are a little bit, I guess, longer. So the first one is going to be, where did the name The Hive come from?
Yeah, the name The Hive.
Were you a big Beyonce fan?
No. I mean, she's great. My daughter, her name's Liliana. Her nickname is the Honeybee. So she's the honeybee. And I mean, they are really why my kiddos, my babies, Liliana and Grayson, are really why I wanted to start my own business, because I wanted to be more present for them. And so I was like, you know what? This is our little hive. It was the 3 of us. I didn't have anybody else like my parents are a huge part of my life too, but I was like, you know what? This is our little hive. We're going for it. So
I like that.
Yeah.
I love it.
and obviously I'm the queen bee.
There you go. There you go.
The
There you
real
go.
answer.
It all comes
The
out.
real
Yeah.
So my next question is, I know that all pregnancies aren't the same. How would someone handle something like a C-section at home? Like, is that like something that they do in a home pregnancy?
No.
Not?
So like
Okay.
I said, I don't do labor and birth anymore. But, if you had to, like if you were choosing to have your babies at home and you had some type of complication that you had to have a C-section, you would just be transferred to the hospital.
Understand. Okay.
And then whoever the care provider was at the hospital would assume your care and then finish doing whatever you needed to do. But
Okay.
most planned home births have a very, very high vaginal delivery rate, more than 98%.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
transfer rates are
What
generally
if,
pretty low.
if you don't mind, like, do you know the number for like in hospital? Like,
Most hospital C-section rates are about 33%. So a third.
Oof.
so it's significantly.
Way different.
Yeah, I know that can be a pretty pretty intensive. I mean, it's surgery at
Yeah.
that point. It's pretty, and I know the recovery can be pretty bad. So I was like, man, people do that at home. Like as we got to that part, I was like, I gotta write this down. I was like, that sounds insane.
Yeah,
you
no.
know?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you had to have, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like there are complications that can arise at any time in birth, and there are catastrophic events that happen at home births. They just are very rare because if we allow physiologic birth to happen, it's generally pretty
Pretty smooth.
undisrupted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And then my last question is, what's the conversation that you have with a client that's struggling with their journey? Like if there's someone with you and y'all have been working together for a while and it's like, hey, Elyse, I'm just not having, the like help
luck.
me.
Yeah,
I'm not having the luck. Like what's
Yeah.
going on?
So that's a great question because it does happen and people get, frustrated. They're like, I'm doing the things and I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. And so number one, we always do labs at every appointment. And so I'm using that to show you like, hey, you might not feel better yet, but like your testosterone's risen like in Females, our testosterone, like our total testosterone, which is not what we use, but our total testosterone should generally be somewhere between like 20 all the way up to like 55. That's I would say normal, quote unquote normal. Most of the women I'm seeing, their testosterone's less than 12. And they're like, I don't have any muscle tone. I don't have any, I don't feel like I can get up and do the things. And I'm like, girl, I bet you can't. You're like, you don't have any energy. And so I'll use that for an example because it is something that we get to move very easily if we're doing the right things. I'm like, I know you don't feel it yet, but like your testosterone was less than 12 and now it's 22. Like your stuff is changing. It is working. We have to continue. Most of the time, people are going to feel significantly better in a short period of time, in my opinion, what I would consider a short period of time. My general advice is that we're going to feel about 20 to 40% better about the 6-month mark. So I try to give that to them, like, here's a nugget to hold on to. But most of the time they feel a lot better sooner than that and more than that, 20 to 40%. But if they're not, then I need to stop what I'm doing and figure out like, hey, why isn't this fixing it? Like, why are you not feeling better? What's going on? Where is the block at? And so just kind of rerouting, putting it in reverse a little bit, looking at the bigger picture maybe. And then also like letting them know like, hey, I'm here with you. I know this is really frustrating. Like, let's try this other route, this other option. How does that feel? And most of the time they're like, okay, yeah, I feel rejuvenated. I can continue.
I love it.
So the testing goes a long way.
Yeah. Labs.
Right. Yeah. I think it's so important to have like black and white. I'm a data-driven gal.
Perfect.
I think it's like, if I don't know what I'm doing it for, what am I doing it for?
Yeah, you want to see that proof.
It kind of reminds me a lot of like what they like teach and talk about here is like the scale isn't always the defining factor. It's
For
like, man, I've
sure.
been doing this workout or whatever and I've only lost 5 pounds. I'm trying to lose 15. What's going on? But it's like, hey, your bench has gotten better. Your, eating.
Your pants fit better.
Yeah, your pants fit better. It's like all these things that are like, you don't have to just go by this one thing.
For sure, yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Tell us the location one last time, Instagram, social, stuff like that.
For sure. So it's the Hive, a place for wellness. We are located at 1001 Pine Lock in Suite 800, right next door to Pomodoro's Italian. Our website is hivewomenswellness.com. And then same thing, our social handle is Hive Women's Wellness.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Go see Dr. Elyse Martin.
Yeah. Just Elyse. Elyse is fine, yeah.
She answers to all of them. So, thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, make sure you like, subscribe. Got more coming.
All right. Peace out.